Rabbi say we're on the Mishnah on the bottom of DAF Samach Gimel Amid Beis. Ha'isha sha'amra hiskaba ligiti tzricha shtei kitei edem shnayim sha'amrim befanenu amra u'shnayim sha'amru befanenu kibel v'kara. So when a woman wants to appoint a shaliach to receive the get, and remember we said a shliach for Kabbalah, upon the shliach's receipt of the get, the woman is automatically divorced. We distinguished yesterday between a shliach Kabbalah and a shliach holacha. But if the shliach is acting at the behest of the woman, then as soon as he receives the get, she's automatically divorced. If that's contested, if let's say the shliach and the woman claim that she's divorced and someone contests that, so the halacha is she needs to present two sets of witnesses. One set of witnesses that can testify that she appointed the shaliach as a shliach Kabbalah, and another set of witnesses who actually witnessed the shaliach receiving the get from the husband. So, and not only did he receive the get from the husband, but the Mishnah says afterwards he tore it up. Because no one's producing an intact get. The only thing that the shaliach might be able to present is torn pieces of paper that when you put them together, it looks like a get. Now, why is it necessary for him to tear it up? The Gemara will explain shortly. Says the Mishnah, Afilu hein harishonim ve'hein ha'achronim, o echad min harishonim ve'echad min ha'achronim ve'echad mitztarif imahim. The Mishnah says you don't need two separate sets of witnesses. They could be the same witnesses who saw the dispatch of the woman to the shaliach are the same witnesses. Reuven and Shimon are the same guys who see the shaliach receive the get. Or you could have three people, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven and Shimon witnessed the woman assigning the shaliach, and Shimon and Levi saw the shaliach receive the get. Either one of those permutations is perfectly fine. Let's now take a look at the Gemara. Itmar, Baal Omer lepikadon, Ushlish Omer legerushin mi ne'eman. So here's an interesting discussion. What if the husband says that, a shaliach claims that he delivered a get or he received a get on behalf of his wife? A little bit slower today, huh?
Cousin Shani.
Yeah, it's family day, so they feel that they can do chazanas. Right. So if the husband says that I never divorced my wife, it's true that I gave a get to the shlish, to this middleman, but he was not a shaliach to deliver the get, but he was rather just supposed to hold it in escrow until such time that I decided that I wanted to use the get. I never authorized him to deliver the get. And the shaliach says, the shalish, this middleman says, what are you talking about? Not only was I designated by the wife to receive the get, but you gave me the get in order for their wife to be divorced. So the question is, in that situation, mi ne'eman. And it's interesting, the poskim in Even HaEzer, Siman Kuf Mem Aleph, point out that we're talking in a situation where it's just a dispute between the husband and the shaliach, whether he's a shliach Kabbalah or shliach holacha. That's not the issue over here. We're not discussing that, because if everyone agrees that the shaliach is a shaliach, then the shaliach is believed. Here it's a question that the husband is claiming, I never made you a shaliach in the first place. I just wanted you to hold on to the get until such time that I decided to use it. So who's believed in that case? Rav Huna Amar Baal Neman v'Rav Chisda Amar Shlish Neman. So Rav Huna says, we believe the husband, and she's not divorced, and that if she wants to get divorced, the husband will have to do a new get. And Rav Chisda says that no, the shalish, the middleman, is believed. Now, it's very important to note here that both Rashi and Tosfos say that this machlokes only holds true when the husband and the wife are in the same city. And the Gemara, this will become clear momentarily in the argumentation of the Gemara. But the reason why you have to say that is because any time a person comes from out of town to deliver a get, what's the first Mishnah in Gittin? He has to say, B'fanai nechtav v'fanai nechtam, and if he says that, we believe him. Now, what if a husband were to say, I never gave you the get to deliver it, I only gave you the get to hold on to it until such time that I wanted to use it? Couldn't the husband invalidate the get according to Rav Huna over here? So the answer is that Rav Huna only holds that the husband can invalidate it with that argument if the wife is in the same city, as we'll see in just a moment. But if the shlich is from out of town, the husband and the wife are in two separate cities, everyone agrees that we don't believe the husband when he makes such a claim. So Rav Huna Amar Baal Neman, Di Imisa de Legerishin Yahve Nihale Lidida, Hava Yoiv La Nihala. So he says, what's Rav Huna's argument as to say why we believe the husband? It's because the husband's argument is, I never gave the get to deliver to my wife. If I wanted to deliver a get to my wife, I would have put it in her hands directly. I live in Thornhill, she lives in Lawrence. I would have driven down and given it to her directly. I didn't need a shaliach. So that's the reason why we say that the husband is believed, because they're in the same town. But Rav Chisda Amar Shlish Ne'eman Daha Himnei. And Rav Chisda argues, no, we believe the shlish, this middleman, because after all, if the husband believed the shlish to put the get in his hands, whenever you entrust someone with a very important document, you're implicitly saying, I believe you. I hereby give you credence. I give you credibility. So therefore, Rav Chisda says, the very fact that the husband entrusted a get into the hands of the shlish means that the husband himself is admitting that this guy has credibility. So if he says that I was appointed to deliver the get, we believe him, and therefore she's considered divorced. So Masiv Rabbi Abba. So Rabbi Abba is now going to challenge Rav Huna, who says we believe the husband. Hodoas baldin kemeya edim dami ushlish neman mishnehem. That whenever you have litigants, the litigants themselves, when they make an admission that they owe money, that's like 100 witnesses testifying. But you know what's even better than that? When you have a middleman, who's, let's say, an escrow holder, if he makes a statement, he's believed even more than the two litigants. So Keitzad ze omer kach v'ze omer kach shlish neman. That if, let's say, Reuven and Shimon have a dispute, Reuven says the money that we left with Yankel is mine, and Shimon says the money that was left with Yankel is mine. So we ask Yankel, whose money is it? Whoever Yankel says it belongs to, he's the one that's believed the most. So the Gemara says, so what do you see from here? That you believe the middleman. How can you, Rav Huna, say that you don't believe the middleman? Answers the Gemara, Shiny mamon di'isyoiv l'mechila. The answer is because money can be forgiven. And the way Tosfos explains this is that the very fact that a man gives money to an escrow holder is basically saying, not only do I entrust you with this money, but I give you credibility to say that whatever you do with that money, I have implicit trust in you. Even if you're going to use the money for something else that I never intended it for, I still trust you. It's like when you invest money with someone, you say, okay, whatever you're going to do with it, I trust you. And therefore, if this middleman decides that the money should go to the other guy, so then Reuven has every right to be moichel that money. But here you're not dealing with a question of mechila, of just being moichel, of just saying, okay, I believe you, do with the money as you wish. Here we're dealing with a get. There's an issue of safek eishes ish over here. You can't be so flippant to say that the husband says, Moichel, do whatever you want. So therefore, if the husband claims, I never really meant to give it to you, to deliver the get, just hold on to it until I tell you what to do, so then you have to give the husband's claim credence. That's what Rav Huna argues. Frek the Gemara v'hatanya v'chein legitten. But 1 second, the Brisa says that halacha that you always believe the middleman is true even with gitten. So the Gemara says, Gittei mamon. That doesn't mean divorce documents, it means shtaros, because the word gitten generically can mean a shtar. It's referring to financial instruments. V'hatanya v'chein lishtaros. But 1 second, there's another brisa that says that it also applies to shtars. How can you tell me that the word gitten means shtars if the word shtars means shtars? Two words can't mean the same thing. So the Gemara says, Midi gabi hadadi tanya? Question mark. What are you talking about? These are two separate brises. One brisa uses the word gitten to mean shtar. The other brisa uses shtar to mean shtar. So therefore, because they don't appear next to each other in the same brisa, it's not a problem that they mean exactly the same thing, which means financial contracts, and it uses two different terms. Tanan. Let's look at our Mishnah now. Ha'isha sha'amra hiskaba ligiti tzricha shtei kitei edim shnaim shi'amru b'fanenu amra u'shnaim shi'amru b'fanenu kibel v'kara. Our Mishnah just got through telling us that if a woman appointed a shaliach to receive her get on her behalf, a shaliach kabbalah, like we learned, right? She needs two sets of witnesses in the event that she's challenged by someone who says you're not divorced. She needs witnesses to testify that she assigned that guy to accept the get, and she needs another two witnesses to testify that the shaliach actually received the get from the husband. Va'amai lihamne lishlish. So the Gemara says, but why don't you believe the guy himself, the middleman, the guy who she was appointed as shaliach? If you, according to you, Rav Chisda, you always believe the middleman, to say that it's a get? Why do you need two witnesses? Just ask the guy, were you acting as a shaliach to receive the get? And if he says yes, that should be sufficient. Why do you need additional witnesses? So the Gemara answers, Mi kanafik gita mituse yade dilehimne. So the Gemara's answer is like this. The shaliach may not have the intact get, because remember, what is he supposed to do after receiving the get? He's supposed to rip it up. So he may have the torn pieces of the shtar still in his hands, so that we believe that he received the get. But he no longer has the power of believability. What's the reason why a shaliach has the power of believability? It's because he has the shtar in his hands, and if he wanted to, he could deliver the get again. So therefore, it's almost like amigu. We give him the power of credibility because he's holding the piece of paper in his hand. Here, this guy is no longer holding an intact get in his hands to make the claim that we believe him. So that's the difference. The difference is Rav Chisda is talking about where the shaliach is holding a get. The husband's claiming, I never made you a shaliach, and the shaliach says, you did make me a shaliach, and that's why I'm holding the get. Right? So that's why we believe the shaliach, because he has the power of just delivering it because it's in his hand. But over here in our Mishnah, he's holding torn pieces of paper. He can't use this as a get, and therefore he loses his credibility. So the Gemara now says, Teinach Amra, Kibel Lamali. But the Gemara says, but wait a minute. According to the way you're explaining it, that the shaliach has torn pieces of a get in his hand, I can understand why you need witnesses to testify that she appointed him as a shliach for Kabbalah. But why do you need witnesses to testify that the husband delivered him the get? He's got the torn pieces of the shtar in his hand. Isn't that sufficient? So Amar Rabba Hamani Rabbi Lazar da Amar Edi Mesir Karti. So the answer is because our Mishnah is going like Rabbi Lazar, who says that you need to have Edei Mesira. You need to have witnesses on the Mesira of the get. And if you don't have that, if someone challenges and says that there were no Edei Mesira, they can invalidate the get. But according to Rebbe Meir, Taka, you don't need Edim, according to the way our Mishnah says. So the Gemara now says, well, let's go back to the whole issue. Kara Lamali. Why did he have to tear up the shtar in the first place, the get in the first place? Amar of Yehuda, Amar Rav, Bishas HaGezerah Shanu, because we're dealing with a time of Shmad, a time of religious persecution, where the government authorities have forbidden Jews from doing Jewish marriages and Jewish divorces, and that's why it's necessary in this historical period for the shaliach to tear up the get. He holds on to it for some level of evidence, but he has to tear it up nonetheless. By the way, as a matter of practice, we tear the get today every time after the get is delivered. I don't know whether it's exclusively because of this reason. I think part of the reason is that it should never be reused. And also, by the way, you should know that this whole din of our Gemara today has practical applications. Because the Shulchan Aruch brings down both the opinion of Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, that we don't want the husband to be able to claim. Rav Huna says, if the husband claims, I never made the shaliach a shaliach, I just gave the get to him for safekeeping, I never meant for him to deliver it, there is credence if the husband and wife are in the same city, according to Rav Huna. That's why a Beis Din tries to avoid at all costs a get al yedei shaliach when the husband and wife are in the same city. That's why they always want the husband and wife to be there in the same room. It's only in very unusual circumstances where the Beis Din would say, well, the husband and wife are going to kill each other if they see each other, or the husband's about to get on a plane or whatever it is, and then we'll allow the husband to do what's called a kisvu tenu, write the get and deliver it to my wife. Okay, let's go weiter. Amar Rabba, Umoda Rav Huna di amra ihi lididi amar li shlish de legerishin yaveni alei mehemna. So Rabba says something very bizarre. Even though Rav Huna paskins that we believe a husband if he claims that I never gave the get for delivery, I just gave it to him to hold on to it, if the woman says that the shaliach told me that he was assigned as a shaliach, we believe her and she's considered divorced. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, mi kamidi the shlish gufe lo meheman v'i mehemna. That doesn't make any sense. If the shaliach himself would testify that, we wouldn't believe him. So we're going to believe her when she says the shaliach told me? That doesn't make any sense. So the Gemara says, Ella I amra kamai didi legerishin yahaveni halei mehemna, migu di baya amra lidida yahaveni halei baal. So the Gemara says like this, what Rabbi is really saying is that if a woman says that I was present when my husband appointed this guy, the shaliach, to deliver the get to me, then halachically she's believed to say that I'm divorced. Why? Because she has a migu. The migu is that every woman is believed if she testifies that I am divorced, if she says it in the presence of her husband. And we're going to learn about that momentarily. Now, there's a machlokes here between the Rosh and the Rif, exactly how to understand what's going on over here. According to the Rif, the only time that she's believed in this scenario is if she's holding on to the get. She says, look, I have a get. How do you think I got the get? The shaliach gave it to me because I saw my husband, my ex-husband, appoint him as the shaliach. The reason why she's believed is because she has a migu. If she wanted to, she could have said, my husband gave me the get, and here it is. But the Rosh says that even if she's not holding on to the get, there's no get to be found. A woman is still believed under certain circumstances that we'll learn momentarily. A woman is believed if she says, I'm a divorced woman. My husband divorced me. Even if, as long as she's willing to say it in front of his face, she's believed, because a woman does not have chutzpah to lie in the face of her husband if she's really married. And therefore, if she says that I saw my husband authorize the shaliach to accept the get for me, and he accepted it, and that's why I'm divorced, we believe her under the power that she could have said that my husband divorced me directly. Now let's go weiter. Baal Amar Legerishin, Ushlish Amar Legerishin, Vihi Omeres, Nasan Liva Avad. Now let's look at the next case, which is a little bit different, and we'll see why in just a minute. The husband says, I gave the get to the shaliach to divorce the wife. And the shaliach says, I received the get with that condition. And the wife says that the shaliach gave me the get and now I lost it. Because the Beis Din wants to know, okay, where's the piece of paper? She says, I lost it. So in that situation, Amar Rabbi Yochanan have a davar shebe'erva ve'ein davar shebe'erva pachos mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan says, there's something fishy here. If anyone contests the get, we're going to need two witnesses to corroborate that she's actually divorced. Why? There's something fishy. Maybe what really happened is the shaliach got the get. He lost it before he had a chance to deliver it to the woman. And he went over to the woman and says, lady, do me a favor. You want to be divorced. Your husband wants to divorce you. I lost the get, unfortunately. Just say that you're divorced. Otherwise, I'm going to get into a lot of trouble. So that's what we're worried about. And therefore, we need witnesses to show that she actually received the get. Va'amai v'lehimnei l'shlish. So the Gemara says, but according to Rav Chisda, we should always believe the middleman, right? So the Gemara says, Mi kanafik itimitu seyade dilehimne. Because over here, he doesn't even have the torn pieces of the get to demonstrate that he received the get. So therefore, he doesn't have any credibility at all. Frek the Gemara v'lehimne lebal. So the Gemara says, well, why don't you believe the husband when he says he gave it to the shliach to divorce her? The Amar Reb Chia bar Abban Amar Reb Yochanan Baal Shomer Girashti is Ishti Neman. Because after all, didn't Reb Yochanan say that if a husband is believed to say that he divorced his wife? So the Gemara answer is Mi Kamer Girashti. Because here the husband didn't say that he divorced his wife directly. He said he gave the get to a shaliach. So that's why we have to be concerned that maybe it's true he gave it to the shaliach, but the shaliach never carried through. He lost it on the way. Frek the Gemara, V'leima chazaka shliach osa shlichuso. Da Amar Reb Yitzchak, Amar l'shlucho tzei v'kadosh l'isha stam, umeis shlucho, Asr b'chol hanashim sheba'olam. But normally, don't we assume that a shaliach fulfills his proxyship? After all, what about the following halacha? If a man tells his shaliach, he says, Jeeves, or let's say Avraham says to Eliezer, go ahead and marry a wife for my son Yitzchak. So, and whatever woman you feel is appropriate, go find, right? So a guy goes over to his Jeeves, and he says, Jeeves, find me a wife. I don't care what, I trust your judgment, find me a wife. So Jeeves goes to find a wife, and unfortunately he dies before he has a chance from coming back. So the halacha is, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, that this guy, the Mishaleach, is not allowed to marry any other woman until it's clarified who Jeeves accepted Kiddushin for. Why? Or gave Kiddushin to. Because what happens if the next woman he falls in love with is related as a sister or a daughter or a mother of the woman that Jeeves presented Kiddushin to? And it's an erva, so therefore we can't let him marry anyone. So why? Because we assume that the shliach performed his shlichus. Chazaka shliachos shlichusa. So the Gemara answers, Hani mili lechumr, aval lekulalo. The Gemara says it's true, to be machmir, we assume that a shliach fulfilled his shlichus. But to be makel, and to say that a shaliach fulfilled his shlichus, that we don't do. That we don't do. In other words, like to say over here that it's okay, we can be makel and assume that the shaliach delivered the get. No, we have to be machmir because it's a davar shebe'erva. There's a potential of safek eishes ish over here, and we don't know. We don't know if she was really technically divorced. V'lehimne lidida midarav hamnuna. But one second, but why don't we believe the woman if she says she got the get? The amar Rav Hamnuna ha'isha shamar labayla geirashtani ne'emenes chazak eneisha me'iza panea bifnei bala. But what about this chazaka that I mentioned before, that Rav Hamnuna had said that if a woman testifies in the presence of her husband that I'm divorced, then we believe her. Because there's a chazaka that no woman would be so impudent and bold to lie bald-faced in the face of her husband. But the Gemara says that chazaka is only true. Hanimili heicha deleka de kamisayala, aval heicha de misayala meiza umeiza. The answer is because that's only when she's testifying alone in the face of a husband who's accusing her of not being divorced. There we say she has a chazaka, but over here where both the husband and the shaliach are supporting her, ironically, counterintuitively, we don't believe her. Because maybe the only reason she's saying it is because she's being backed up by other people who are colluding in a lie. So therefore we have to suspect collusion. We have to suspect that the get never actually went through because it was done via shaliach and we don't trust any of the three parties, and therefore we need testimony, otherwise we're going to require another get. Let's go on to the next Mishnah. Nara ha'me'orasa hi ve'avia mekablenes gita. Now we switch gears. There's a law, according to the Torah, that a man is allowed to accept kiddushin for his minor daughter, and even for his na'ara daughter. Now, what is a na'ara? From the age of 12 to 12 and a half, she's called a na'ara. So she's halachically an adult, but she's not a full adult yet until she reaches the age of bogeres, which is 12 and a half. Now, the father has the rights to accept kiddushin for her, but since she's an adult, can she accept her own get if the husband divorces her? So the Chachamim say that either the father or she herself can accept the get. But Amar Rabbi Yehuda ein shtei yadayim zechus ke'echas ela avia mekabel es gita bilvad. So Rabbi Yehuda disagrees and he says no, you can't have two parties having dominion over the same get, over the same marriage. It's either her or it's the father. And since the father still has tutelage over her for kiddushin, he also has tutelage over accepting the get. He supersedes her power. And the last thing that the Mishnah says, which seems to be according to everyone, is that if a girl is so young and lacking in intelligence that she's not able to watch over her get, she cannot be halachically divorced. And the way that Rashi explains in the Gemara is this means even if the father is still alive and you want to give the get to the father, a girl who does not have enough das yet to know what divorce means cannot halachically be divorced until she becomes more intelligent. It doesn't require her to be an adult. She just has to be a katana with a modicum of intelligence. And the reason why is because the Torah says, V'shilacha mi beisa, you send her away. Well, what if you send away like a stray cat? You send away the stray cat and it keeps coming back. That's not called sending away. So that she has to have at least enough intelligence to understand that when the husband sends her away, she's not meant to come back. And if she doesn't have that level of intelligence, it's not a legal divorce, even if the father accepts it on her behalf. Okay, let's take a look at the Gemara. Let's first understand the machlokas between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. What are they disagreeing about? The Chachamim say either the father or she can accept her get, and Rabbi Yehuda says no, only the father. So Rabbanan Savri Yada Yasir Tezachi La Rachmana, the Rabbi Yehuda Savri B'Makam Avia Yadi La Lav Klumhi. Very simply, when the Torah says that the father has tutelage over a girl who's a naira, it's adding an additional level of control to add options, that not only is she an adult, but her father also has rights over her, and therefore either one can accept the get, both her as a gedola and her father as the one who the Torah assigns tutelage. And Rabbi Yehuda says no, the father's rights supersede her rights. that it's not that it's either or, but it's only the father who completely supersedes her rights to accept the get for herself, and therefore only he can accept it for her. If a girl is not of age, if not of intelligence, to be able to watch over her get, then she can't be divorced. So Tanu Rabbanan Ketana hayodas lishmor zgita miskareshes, v'she'ena yodas lishmor zgita ena miskareshes. The Brisa says if she's old enough to know what it means to watch her get, to protect her get, she can be divorced. But if she doesn't understand the get, then she can't be divorced. So ve'ezu hiktana yodas lishmor zgita. What's the definition of intelligence? Kol shemishamer zgita v'davar acher. If she's capable of watching over the get and something else. Now, what does that mean? My ka'amar, Amar Rabbi Yechanan hachi ka'amar, Kol shemishamer davar acher machmas gita. He says something very bizarre. He says that if she, let's say, the husband gives her a get and she loses it, but then she pretends that her doll is a get. So in that situation, if she's able to protect something and treat it as a get, even when she loses the get, then she's called divorced. So Maskif la Ravuna bar Manoach hashoita ba'almahi. He says that's a complete lack of intelligence. If she thinks her doll is a get, then obviously she has no idea what a get is, right? So therefore, that can't be the level of intelligence. So Ela Amar Rav Huna bar Manoach mishmei Rav Acha berei Ravika kol shemavchenes ben gita ledavar acher. No, she has to be able to discern the difference between a get and something which is not a get. If we show her two pieces of paper and she understands that is a get, and that, or your doll, or something else, is not a get, she knows what a get is and what a get isn't, so then she's old enough to be divorced. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rebbe Asi, Tzror v'zorko egos Tzror v'zorko egos v'notlo, zocha la'atzmo ve'in zocha la'achem. So we slightly switch. We're talking now about acceptable levels of intelligence for children. Now really, a child can't be koina on his own, but the Chachamim made a takana that a katan can be kona for himself and can also sometimes be kona on behalf of other people. So it's a takanas chachamim. So Rav Yehuda says the name of Rabbi Asi, if he has enough intelligence such that he'll know the difference between a nut and a pebble, he'll keep the nut and put it in his pocket and he'll throw the pebble away, that's enough intelligence for him to be kona something on behalf of himself, but he can't be kona on behalf of others. In other words, if he wants to pick up something on behalf of someone else, that's not called a kinyan. However, but if he has enough intelligence that if someone gives him something to watch it for safekeeping, and when the person says, "May I have it back, sonny boy?" he says, "Sure, sir," and he gives it back to him. So that's enough intelligence not only to be kind of for himself, but he can be kind of for other people as well. So ki amrisa kamei di Shmuel, but when I mentioned this distinction in front of Shmuel, Amar li David da echasi. Shmuel says, "I'm sorry, I disagree." Both tests, as far as knowing the difference between a nut and a pebble, and being able to return something that was given to him for safekeeping, have the same halachic status. So the question is, "My David da echasi." What does that mean? So what do you mean when it's the same halachic status is what? To be machmir or to be mekel? Amar Rav Chizda echad zeh ve'echad zeh zoichel la'atzmo ve'ein zoichel la'achem. So Rav Chizda says that's enough intelligence to only be kona for a katan for himself, but he can't be kona on behalf of other people. So Masav Rav Chinan of Varda'an keitzad mishtatfin b'mavoy. So Rav Chinan of Varda'an challenges that. He says, look, there's a brisa that says as follows. The members of the community want to make an Eruv. So typically, what do you have to do? You have to take a food item and make sure that every member of the neighborhood owns a portion of that food item. That's what's called an Eruv, right? So meniach esachavis v'omer harezu l'chol b'nei hamavoy. So you take a barrel of wine, just as an example. That was typical. They would use a barrel of wine, and you would say every member of the community has a portion in this barrel of wine, but you have to do it such that a third party has to be kona on behalf of the other members of the community. That's called being zocha on behalf of others. And therefore you can assign your son or your daughter, as long as they're adults, they can be zocha independently on behalf of the other members of the community. Or you can have your eved ivri or your shifcha or ama ha'ivriya, you could have your Hebrew servant, male or female, acquire on behalf of the other members of the Mavli. So the Gemara now says, Hi Shifcha Heichidami. Now let's define, how old is this Shifcha, this female Jewish slave? Ida asya shtei sairos my bayagabe. Well, we know the Torah law says that as soon as she becomes 12 years old, if she's a female Hebrew slave, she immediately goes free. Either you marry her or she goes free. So therefore, it can't be referring to a girl who's over the age of 12. So elalav delo astir shtei saros ukatani zocha la'acherim. So you see that she's not yet 12 years old. She hasn't reached physical maturity, and yet we say that she can be kona to be zocha on behalf of other people. So isn't that a raya that she can be zocha on behalf of other people even though she's not of age? So the Gemara says, "Shiny shitufei mavos de rabbanon." Answers the Gemara, it could be that it's only midirabanan, that only for a rabbinic accommodations, such as to allow people to carry in the Mavoi on Shabbos, because really midioraisa they're allowed to carry, because it's not a real Rishus HaRabbim. So for an accommodation, a rabbinic accommodation, the rabbis will be mekel. So Amar Rav Chisda, Ishtik Vardan. So Rav Chisda says, Rav Chinan of Vardan fell silent, implying that he didn't need to fall silent. Like, why did he fall silent? So the Gemara says, "My havalelememer." So Rav Chisda, what are you suggesting? What should Rav Chinan bar Dan responded to in challenge? He said, "Kol detakan rabbanon kein deoraisa takan." That he should have argued that no, if the Chachamim are making an accommodation by allowing a katan to be zoche, they should not make any distinction between a rabbinic law and a biblical law, because anytime the Chachamim make an accommodation for a biblical law, it has to be fashioned after that same accommodation that they would make for a biblical law. So therefore, if they're allowing a katan to be zoche on behalf of others to only a rabbinic prohibition, they should be allowing it for a biblical issue as well. So therefore, I don't know why you wouldn't say it would work in other cases too. V'idach. So, in defense of Rabbi Chanina Varda as to why he remained silent is Ki Amridan called the Takan Rabbanan came daraisa Takan b'milsa de isla ikr min Torah, aval milsa de lesla ikr min Torah lo. Now, the way I'm understanding this, and it could be that I'm mistaken in my understanding, is that the response is like this: the only time that the Chachamim are going to ramp up a rabbinic law to accommodate another rabbinic law is only when the rabbinic law that they want to create, so in this case, a katan being zocha on behalf of others, has a basis in the Torah. But in this situation, really a katan can't be kona on behalf of himself or other people, and therefore there's no requirement for the Chachamim to equate rabbinic law to biblical law over here. Since this whole thing is a rabbinic invention to begin with, they can choose to apply it only to accommodate rabbinic law and not to accommodate biblical law. So therefore that argument that the Chachamim were always equivalent in the way that they apply rabbinic law is only when that rabbinic law has a basis in biblical law. But here this is a complete rabbinic fabrication, and therefore they don't have to apply it equally to rabbinic or biblical law. So Masav Ravivya challenges this. Ma'ariman al Meiser Sheni Ketzah. There's a law that states as follows. What is Meiser Sheni? A man tithes his produce. The second tithe has to be brought up to Yerushalayim. So there is a way to avoid having to schlep all that produce up to Yerushalayim. How do you avoid it? You can be poda it onto cash, and you take the cash and you bring the cash up to Yerushalayim. So the only thing is, the Torah says, but if you want to do that, you have to add a chomesh. 25% has to be added onto the cash. So if the produce is worth 100, you have to bring $125. It's sort of like exchanging it from U.S. currency to Canadian currency, lahavdil, right? So in other words, you have to add that extra amount of money to bring that to Yerushalayim. But what if you want to save yourself that extra 25%? So you can pull a little shtick. What's the shtick you can do? Give some money to your kids or to your friends, and say, do me a favor, poda my Meiser Sheni for me. Because the law is that it's only when you're poda your own Meiser Sheni you add the fifth, but if someone else does it for you, the Torah does not require you to add on the fifth. So, Omer Adam Livno Uvito Hagdoilam La'avdo V'shivchaso Ivrim Hei Lochem Ma'os Halalu P'tubahen Meiser Sheni Zeh. That you can tell your children, if they're adults because they're no longer dependent upon you financially, or you can tell your Hebrew slave, either male or female, here's some money, be poda my Meiser Sheni for me, and that way we'll save the fifth. So so once again, what's the case of this Hebrew slave female? Ida asya beistyros my boy gabe. She can't be a legal adult because otherwise, once she reaches physical maturity, she goes free. So elolav the low asya beistyros. So she must still be a katana. She must still be a minor. And yet you see that she can be zoche. She can take possession of the money, and not only that, but be zochid on behalf of me to be put in my ma'aser sheni funds. So what do you see? You see that a katana can be zochal for other people. So the Gemara says, no, that's different also. The answer is we're only talking about, again, this accommodation that she can be zocha for her master only works for rabbinic law by meiser that's nowadays, which is only derabanan, because there's no laws of yovel and shemitah, so the laws of meiser are only meiser shene are only midirabanan. There's no temple, etc. So the Gemara says, wait a minute. Va'ama ha'ivriya bizman hazem mi'ika v'hatanya ein eved ivri noheg ela bizman shayovel noheg. But one second, if that's the case, then how could you're asynchronous? You can't have the laws of an eved and say that it applies bisman hazeh, and say that we're talking about bisman hazeh because meiser is only b'derabbanan. Doesn't make any sense. The laws of eved ivri don't apply bisman hazeh. So how can you tell me that this case is talking about bisman hazeh if you were dealing with an eved? The laws of eved ivri only apply when there's yovel. There's no yovel today, and that's the reason why there's no meiser today except midirabanan. So you're being asynchronous. You can't mix and match two historical periods. So the Gemara says you're right. You're right. That Bryce is talking about in a previous period of history when the laws of Eved Ivri applied. So therefore you can speak to your female Hebrew slave and tell her to be zocha on your behalf. Why then does it work? It only works for rabbinic accommodations of Maisa D'Rabbanan. There was Maisa D'Rabbanan back then also. In what cases? Where it was a potted plant that was growing produce. A potted plant that was growing produce that had no holes on the bottom only is chayiv in Meiser D'Rabbanan, even in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. And that's the only time that she can be zocha on behalf of you in order to exchange your Meiser Sheni money. And we'll hold it here for today. We'll continue Ritz Hashem tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.